Where's Robert? This is the blow that begins the day.
We are failed today.
Let me try.
You can try it.
Buzz your lips.
I'll do it later. Sorry, buddy. Hey, at least I got a laugh.
Good morning. That was the effort to make you woke. So if you're all woke, we're going to thank first Robert, then Marvin for conking us according to the request of Reverend Murphy, who is our lead speaking person today. And he looks like he wants to do something right this minute.
Well, this first hymn that we're going to sing in just a few seconds, first I want to thank Robert and all of you for the trumpet call. This first hymn I learned in North Carolina, Outer Banks, Hurricane Country, and I'm going to try to help lead it the way that we would sing it in North Carolina, where the floorboards would really bounce, you know. If we get it, we'll try to get it right, okay? But we'll do that in a second. Thank you. Okay.
So well, let's be that. If you will rise in body and spirit to sing number 153, "Oh, I Woke Up This Morning," from the Gray Hymnal.
I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about the.
It's not on.
Oh, okay. Afterwards, I'll tell you a quick story about this. After we sing it. Okay. Yeah. Sing it. Okay. Yeah. This morning with the mind, state of freedom. This morning with the mind, state of freedom. this song and myself. It goes like this. Back in the 1990s, I was in rural North Carolina, and there was a series of churches that were burned down, sometimes by difficult people, sometimes by accident, but a series of church burnings. Turn the mic on. Use the mic. How's that? All right. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Okay. Thank you, tech crew. All right. Bunch of us white Unitarian Universalists. We're in North Carolina. Churches have been burned down. Okay, all over the South, Alabama, all kinds of places. So we're helping to rebuild some black churches. We went to Greene County, Alabama. And, you know, of course, he said, now we're going to rebuild the church. And first of all, we're going to have a concrete slab, concrete slab, because that's the way we do it in the UU churches. But it was a Baptist group, historic black church, Baptist. And they said, no, we don't want a concrete slab. So we want to be up on supports, 2 or 3 feet up from the ground, wooden floor. And what do you think the reason for that is? They want that church to rock, for hymns. They want it to bounce, And that's important. The whole church, that's one of today's themes. The whole church, the whole package is important. Even the building's important. And of course, a song like this is basically call and response. The preacher or the song leader is doing something, the congregation's coming back, we're going back and forth. And that's my song. That's my story about hymn 153. Amen. Thank you.
Now, if this looks like we haven't rehearsed, I'm going to tell you that I'm Bill Stanwood. A lot of you know that. I'm the worship associate for this service, and the focus for April's monthly theme is the gift of interdependence. To that purpose, I'm facilitating the Sunday service, introducing thoughts and ideas about the 2 overlapping holidays, Earth Day and Passover, both tomorrow. If you thought I was going to come mention composting, don't you believe it? Although it's doing very well. Environmental justice may come up, and that is another part of interdependence. Welcome to those who are watching on YouTube, and welcome to all here at the Fellowship. Each week we gather together by singing, even as we're in many different places, and whether our sacred space is virtual or live. This is a reminder that our service is broadcast live on YouTube, and we use the first name and initial of the folks we talk about, for the most part, if we remember, in the interest of privacy. You're welcome here at UUFCC no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background or spiritual journey. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to ask questions, to nurture and be nurtured, to explore new ideas. We come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We trust you will find something that you need here for comfort, connection, challenge, and love, and we hope you will find ways to help others. If you're new here, please stand or wave if you are comfortable so that we can welcome you. Doug will bring you a microphone.
Check 1, 2.
Hi, my name is Mary Lou.
Welcome. If you want to know more about the fellowship, please check out the website, uufcc.org, or ask someone. We're glad you have chosen to spend your Sunday morning with us. Thanks and praise for providing this sacred space for all of us this morning. It's due to core people. volunteers, brave and glorious, gave this week for a groundswork extravaganza. And special thanks to Laura L. and John L., billing people, administrative people, singing and music playing people, cleaning inside and outside people, sound and logistics people, committee people, trustees, and function supporters. Our music today is special with the gift of Ryan S. on the piano and Randy G. in for recovering Janet M. for production. Much gratitude to all. Thank you. Next, we'll enjoy the prelude, and Ryan will please play. Those people are going to go. We have our service as a sacred time, and the chalice is our sacred symbol. It is a reminder that we gather in community, in a safe community, in this community that we have created together. Our lighter today is Fred P. Thank you, and you may light your chalice at home with us. This passage and brief reading is taken from a song by a person, Unitarian Universalist, Pat Humphreys, and it's called Swimming to the Other Side. It's actually a song, but I'm going to read it for a number of different reasons, just parts of it. The words are, "We are living 'neath the great big dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my guide. In humanity, I will listen. We are all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all the gifts we've been given to share. They've been given to us since the beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance on the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Maybe swimming leads to something like Passover, or a little like getting through the Red Sea after the Passover. I bring those connections up because today's message is a combination of the two, and interdependence being the theme of the month helps us understand that those two holidays, Earth Day and Passover, are connected. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of Freedom. Please join me in reciting our affirmation, printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. The opening words this morning are by Reverend Murphy, known to many as Bob. Please rise in spirit to join the choir in singing number 1007 in the Teal hymnal, "There's a River Flowing in My Soul."
Flowing in my soul.
think we can just pass on the lead.
I'm going to come down from the pulpit and I'm going to greet each one of you as best I can and say thank you for the green glasses, especially today. We're going to read Book of Exodus. You all know the Exodus story. You remember it from when you were children. We're going to read the Exodus story with green glasses. It's very Floridian. And we're going to discover the story of Passover. And we're hoping not heartbroken.
No, I'm heartbroken because we don't have green glasses.
I'm sure by the end of the summer you will have green glasses. We're all part of Florida, and we're all in this experience together. Green glasses are very much recommended. We're going to bring these holidays together. Passover, which starts at sundown tomorrow. Earth Day, which is tomorrow, April 22nd. We're going to talk about this theme of interdependence, this theme of liberation. And then we're going to discover what happens after we're liberated. We're always talking about wanting to be free. We want to be free, liberated, get away from restraints, dictators. But then what happens after that? And it's all part of today's story. Lynn and I are very happy to be with you, to share this blessed occasion with each one of you. All right, use the microphone, use the mic, okay. Now, if you can't hear me, all right, just speak up. All right, Unitarian Universalists are good at that. Speak up and say, use the mic. Use the mic. Thank you, all of you. Now, who gets the mic? The talking stick. I guess that's what we call it, talking stick these days. Is that right? Okay. All right. Thank you.
In this portion of the service, we do the Book of Life and dropping stones. We have a long tradition at UUFCC of sharing joys, sorrows, and life milestones by entering them into the Book of Life. These messages can be written in the Red Book, which is at the back of the sanctuary. Those at home are welcome to email your entries to the Book of Life at uufcc.org. We also embrace the tradition of dropping stones in the bowl. The water symbolizes the community, and the stones represent your joy or sorrow. I will first read the entries in the Book of Life. I have a willing person to bring forward the book, and he stepped out. So we have another willing person, a marvelous survivor of. You're doing it. This is wonderful. Thank you. Gurio did it. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, this notice, Susie Barbie has a 2007 Volvo station wagon to sell with the proceeds to buy a used car for our Sora, the Gopas person. So it's a wonderful thing that we'll be able to get her self-propelled. I am not a snowbird, and that's such a terrible term, frankly. But I am going away for a few weeks on vacation. Ted Z. We'll miss you. And love to Kay and everything she has done for me, Annie, and our community. Thank you is insufficient for all the things she has brought and done. From Kathy S. And that's old. Okay. Are there any other things that people would like to note for their joys and sorrows? We have the book of notes here done, and we have a bowl.
So, are we on? Yeah, okay. I couldn't tell. So, Ticket Clinic works, guys. They got my ticket, which was a 81 and a 60 in the express lane in Tampa, down to a non-moving violation and a fine. Thank you for my car insurance on that one, because it's already expensive enough. So we'll be watching ourselves for that. And I have a sorrow that's really very sad. There was a children's birthday party at a like a Moose Lodge in Monroe, Michigan yesterday, and one of my nurse friend's daughters was in attendance. And a drunk driver drove through the side of the building and killed 2 children. And so keep the families of Monroe in your heart on that one.
Carolyn Kay returned from Guatemala, Costa Rica, and the woods of the Smoky Mountains. 3 distinct cultures and a few maybe countercultures and subcultures in those places. But we are all connected. We're connected to the trees, the birds, the flowers, everything and every human being. And thank you to someone like dear little Lori who drove me today. And Debbie C., my next door neighbor, I was with her this morning. She sends love and gratitude to you all.
Oh, I dropped a stone that Joanne and I will have a safe trip north and see you in September.
I drop a stone for Janet, who's healing from her surgery, which went well, and she's anxious to get back, but it's going to take a bit. Thank you.
This last stone represents unspoken joys and sorrows in our hearts. May we hold these in each other in love and tenderness, so that this fellowship may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. Please join me in a moment of silence. And I'd like to introduce the main presentation, the sermon from Reverend Murphy.
I'm going to use the mic. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Wherever you are. Okay. We started today's Sunday service with the sound of a conch shell trumpet. And of course, you all know why we used a conch shell trumpet. It's already been explained. We want to get everybody woke. Okay? Everybody gets woke here. We want everybody to wake up to the present reality, to what is happening, maybe not 20, 30 years from now, or what happened 50 years ago. We want people to be in the present moment, to think about what's happening, to think about how we can care for others and for our environment, just to be in the present moment and to know what it is that needs to be done. Now, this is a very important week. As mentioned, tomorrow is Earth Day, April 22nd, and at sundown, the season of Passover begins. And that's a time when we reflect on the book of Exodus. The Hebrew children were in the wilderness for 40 years. The first Earth Day was more than 50 years ago. And we're still struggling, all of us, to try to understand how do we move into a better way of living? What is it that we're called upon to do in this situation? After 50 years, in a sense, we're still out in the wilderness. Now, I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, and for over 30 years, I have been involved with Passover celebrations because there are many Unitarian Universalist congregations that have Seders, the traditional Passover celebration every year. Does this congregation have a Seder? No, not yet, okay. It's something you may want to think about for the future. And think about how the Seder would function for your needs and for community needs. It's something to keep in mind for future years. Now, part of the Seder tradition, and this is especially important for Unitarian Universalists, is we have skeptics. We have people who ask questions in the midst of Passover. And that's an old tradition. Now, among the Unitarian Universalists, inevitably, there will be a skeptic, and maybe he or she is present at this very moment. There will be a skeptic who will say or ask, how do we know if this is really a true story, Maybe it's just made up. Maybe it's just a hoax. The historians, they can't find any extra biblical references or records that would indicate that this exodus out of Egypt ever happened. They can't find anything, certainly not in the Egyptian records. And the archaeologists say, oh, no, sorry, can't find any evidence of any prehistoric Hebrew camps out in the wilderness that we could associate with Exodus. We don't have any evidence this has happened. And so it is, and rightfully so, that the skeptics ask, how do we know if all of this happened? And there are other skeptics, and again, this is part of the tradition, who will ask during Passover, why is this story so important to you? All right. Those of you who come from a Jewish background know why that question gets asked at Passover. Skepticism is part, and asking questions, that's all part of the tradition. Now, in response, the best that I can say is this. The story of Exodus comes from the late Bronze Age. And the late Bronze Age started about 1,200 years before the time of Jesus. Okay, so this is long before the days of Jesus of Nazareth, 1,200 years, over 1,000 years. And the late Bronze Age is a time when everything falls apart, especially around the Mediterranean, but in other places too, up in the Black Sea and all the way over towards what's now modern Iran, all kinds of places in that part of the world. Everything just falls apart. And there's all kinds of reasons for the collapse of civilization in that moment. So there are references now to climate change, desertification, drought, problems that result civil wars, invasions, widespread disease. Many cities just cease to exist. Jericho, for example, was probably one example. They no longer exist. Late Bronze Age. And many centuries later, so we're talking like 500 years or so later, or even later than that, historians, not historians so much, but poets and storytellers try to explain what happened back in those days. All right. And this, of course, is the era, late Bronze Age, of the Trojan War. And so the Greeks have their stories about what happens with King Ulysses and Helen of Troy and high and mighty people like that. And then the Assyrians have their stories and what later becomes Italy and even in southern France. There's all kinds of stories that try to explain what happened 500 years ago. And then you get to Egypt and you get to Israel, and it's the book of Exodus, another story from the late Bronze Age. But the book of Exodus is different from the story of the Trojan War and other stories that are told. Because when we talk about Helen of Troy and King Ulysses and other great figures, well, that's the whole point. These are the high and the mighty. Homer tells about that Virgil and the other poets. These are the people at the top of the social pyramid. But when we get to Exodus, everything's turned around. And suddenly the focus is on the people who are at the bottom of the socioeconomic pyramid. So with Exodus, we're going to hear about midwives. Whoever told a story about a midwife? We're going to hear about construction workers. The Greeks don't. Greeks and the Romans don't talk about construction workers. We're going to hear about shepherds. Very ordinary people in a very difficult situation. And how are they going to get out of their difficulties and into a better way of living? Now, to tell the Exodus story, and then to explain what happened after that, and what happened after that, I have brought 3 objects with me today. So this is the show and tell part of the sermon. All right, I'm going to reach over for the first object. This is a gentleman who is very important in the Exodus story. This is Pharaoh. Okay. And Pharaoh, he's the guy here with a hat. He's talking to Thoth, who is the ibis god. Okay. So here we have Pharaoh, and he thinks he's a god, and he's talking to this nature god, the god of the ibis birds. Now, it's very significant in the Exodus story that we never learn Pharaoh's true name. We don't know what he was called in his family. So some people will say, well, he was Seti II, great pharaoh of Egypt, the great potentate. But others say, no, Ramses III. That's in the movie with Charlton Heston. It's Ramses III. But others say, probably was Amenhotep or one of the earlier pharaohs. So you can argue about that. But it's significant that the Bible never tells us what this guy's name was. Pharaoh is a title, and you can translate it in different ways, but basically it means Mr. Big. Okay. Big man lives in a big house. Okay. Now, in Exodus, we learn that Mr. Big is very much dependent on an immigrant labor force, but he worries a lot about homeland security, and he doesn't trust the immigrants. Okay. So he comes up with a strategy that has been tried many times in history to control the population, and it's called genocide. So we're going to kill some of the Jewish babies, and Mr. Big thinks that's going to solve his problems. That's going to give him homeland security at a critical moment. He's not going to kill all the babies, he's going to kill the baby boys. And the girls can live, and they'll probably be in slavery, but, you know, they can deal with that. He tries to put the plan in motion, and there's an act of civil disobedience. The midwives refuse to comply with the plan. And it's significant that we have the names of the midwives in the Bible. We don't know who Pharaoh was, but we know who the midwives were, and we're told that they're blessed. And the Bible explains that there are some times, not very often, but it does happen, when civil disobedience is justified, when it's the right thing to do. The midwives refuse to obey Pharaoh, and they are blessed by God. Pharaoh's daughter refuses to obey her father's commands. And the Bible tells us that she knows exactly what she's doing. She's not naive, because in the background, and the Bible tells us this, she can hear the screams of the Jewish women, the Jewish mothers who have lost their babies. So she knows what's going on. And we're told in Muslim tradition that she is among the most blessed of women. She will be the first woman to enter paradise, essentially the Garden of Eden, when that day comes at some time in the future. Pharaoh's daughter. Now, all kinds of things happen early in the Exodus story, and I think you're familiar with most of what happens. Keep in mind that a healthy society can stay together during a time of disasters, can succeed, can thrive, and, well, survive and thrive. I guess that's the term we use. That can happen in a healthy society. But Egypt is not a healthy society. It is very, very divided. Pharaoh has some kind of hazy nature spirituality. Historians tell us that the people who owned and operated Egypt loved the outdoors. You know, they worshipped crocodiles and ibis birds and cats. Some people still worship cats. I don't know why they do that. But if you lived with cats, you know. But so he has some kind of nature spirituality, but he's very weak in the human rights department. And he's not interested in diversity, he's not interested in equity, and he's not interested in inclusion. Everything falls apart because of these failures. There's a series of disasters. They're called the plagues of Egypt. And they involve things like water pollution, air pollution, disease. Everything gets out of control. Everything falls apart, and the government becomes dysfunctional. And at a critical moment, the people who are enslaved run away into the wilderness. They want to be liberated. And Pharaoh says initially, get out of here. I don't want you around here anymore. I'll get along without you. But then he changes his mind. He realizes he really is dependent on an immigrant labor force. So he sends his National Guard after the refugees, and you know this story. And then a miracle happens, and they escape, and they're liberated. So they've got liberation, right? Everybody should be happy. End of story. That's what we want. We want to be liberated. No more dictatorship. No more Pharaoh. They're into the wilderness for 40 years. And that's when things really get complicated and difficult. And we learn, and we're going to learn this once again in this 21st century, that liberation alone is never enough. It's not the goal. Because after you get out of slavery, what are you going to do next? Now, It's significant that the story of Exodus, all of the leaders in the wilderness, without exception, make mistakes because they're only human. By some miracle, the congregation holds together. All kinds of mistakes. Now, some people, a lot of arguing in the congregation, okay. Some people want to go back to Egypt. Okay, and they say, well, things really weren't that bad back then, at least Pharaoh gave us some meals and some kind of shelter, so let's go back to Egypt. And other people say, no, let's try something else. And I'm going to reach for my second object at this point. I hope you can see this. Okay. There's that incident with the golden calf, okay? All right. Lynn and I went to New York City a few months ago, and we found the golden calf. We brought it back. You can actually find the big version of this. This is just a model, a replica, on Wall Street, which is very appropriate, okay? And I'm told that some people to this day still, prosperity cults, some people worship this, and there's still the belief, I'm going to put it up here for a few minutes. There's still the widespread belief in many places that, if we could just get enough material wealth together, if we could just get it all in one place, more and more stuff, more and more gold or whatever, all of our problems would be solved. And we call this cash cow religion, So here's the cash cow. All right. That doesn't work. And there are other mistakes that are also recorded. 40 years in the wilderness. But by the end of the story, the first generation of refugees, they're gone. They've died. Moses dies. We don't know where he's buried. Zipporah, his wife, is gone. Miriam, prophet, she's gone. Aaron, brother Aaron, he's gone. They're all gone. We move along to the next generation, the Joshua generation. And they cross the river Jericho, and they face new challenges. But that's another story, and we'll hold it for another day, because the hour's getting kind of late. Go back and read the story of Exodus, and this time read it with green glasses, with some appreciation. Now, the question comes up for Earth Day, what are we supposed to do? What is it, as Unitarian Universalists especially, that we're called upon to do in this moment during not the next century, but like maybe within the next 6 months, maybe within the next 90 days, as we're moving into hot weather and hurricane season. So what is it that we need to know, especially in Florida? And it really comes down to two things. Think globally, act locally. That was said more than 50 years ago. Think globally, act locally. Now, at the global level, there's all kinds of things worthy of your attention. So I would suggest reading the Earth Charter. And I have a copy with me if you want to see it later on during coffee hour. And that's a document that has been assembled over many years, hundreds of organizations involved, representing millions of people. And it addresses a long list of social, economic, and environmental problems, the Earth Charter. So I recommend that to you. And keep in mind, again, that global problems will require global solutions, especially true with climate change. Take a look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This is an enormous document developed over many years, endorsed by the United Nations, so we have all nations, many different cultures, religions, races represented. The Sustainable Development Goals, which addresses climate change as an issue, but also gets involved with things like gender justice, women's rights, economic justice, anti-poverty work. They're all together in one document. It's all part of the same package. So all of these things happen at the global level, and they're all recommended to you. But down at the local level, you're going to need something else. Because once you get beyond liberation, you're going to need a better way of living. And you need to think about all the things that have to happen in a congregation or in a community. So we think about things like pastoral care, for example, becomes extremely important. We have to rethink pastoral care and how it connects to emergency services and all sorts of things like that. Psychiatrists, psychologists these days talk about a mental health crisis caused by climate anxiety. Okay, people are sad, they're frustrated, they're depressed. They get involved in all kinds of self-destructive behavior because of the effects of climate change. So we have a mental health crisis and certainly a physical health crisis, and they deserve pastoral care attention throughout the year. I'm going to reach for my next object. This is an emergency services kit, okay? You're going to need this in your households because you're part of Florida, and you know that. You're also going to need this in your congregation. And maybe you already have this object, an emergency services kit. And think about some of the items that you're going to need in your emergency services kit. You're going to need first aid supplies. You're going to need some of that. You're going to need a box of crackers. Okay. Oh, what do you think of that? Matzos. Yeah, they come in handy because they last a long time, and I do recommend them to you. And I'm going to ask for some help passing these out here. So, Bill, this is for your coffee hour. Those of you who have never had matzos, give them a try. You're going to need one of these, or something similar. Songbook. I've done a lot of emergency shelters work, and I can tell you the biggest problem in the shelters during a storm and afterwards is boredom. Kids get frustrated, everybody's upset. Just sing songs together, hold hands, whatever it takes. We've got some great songs here. If you read the book of Exodus, you're going to discover the first music director in history, and you're going to discover how important music directors are. And her name is Miriam, right? Okay. So go back and read about Sister Miriam. She is regarded as a great prophet in the Jewish tradition, and nowadays especially is celebrated during Passover. And she brings all the sisters together, and they sing songs, and that is extremely important in the life of any congregation or community. And that's why we give special recognition to our choir and those of you who help with the choir. Thank you. A better way of living is possible. A better way of living is needed. We need to celebrate environmental justice. We need to get beyond Pharaoh's way of thinking. But when we're out there in the wilderness, we need to realize that liberation alone is not enough. We need to stay together. We need to help each other. We need to help our neighbors. We need to help our environment. And it's possible, and it's also necessary. We will be held accountable by future generations. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Bob. If you would rise in body or spirit and/or for singing hymn number 1067, Mother Earth, Beloved Garden, in the Teal Hymnal. In the tradition of Unitarian Universalism, congregations exist because of the generous support of members and friends. It is our privilege and our responsibility to ensure the health and future of this fellowship. We have several ways you can give, in the basket being passed around, with the Venmo application made to the UUFCC offering. You can mail a check to the office. If you're here for the first time, please don't feel obligated to give. You are our guest today. We will now be accepting the offering. Thank you for your support of this fellowship. The life of the community is now time to highlight UUFCC's events and activities. The back of the order of service has this week's calendar. Also, the weekly update has a calendar, so check that as well. Today I have the following announcements. This is from Susie B. Birthday Cake Sunday. Let's celebrate the birthdays of Lori, Dennis, Jim, Bobby, and Alice. There are birthday cards for Alice in the Fellowship Hall for you to sign. She and George are still members, and they're pretty lonely up in Rhode Island. They miss us. For their benefit and for the benefit of all people who have birthdays, I'd like us to sing Happy Birthday. Can we do that? Are you ready? Do you know the words? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear all people. Happy birthday to you. Nice going. We will now hear the benediction, the closing words from Reverend Murphy.
Tell you a quick story, and then I'll provide the benediction. First aid kit. Lynn and I were involved with a tree planting ceremony last month. And in the midst of the tree planting ceremony, as we were about to say our great words together, a child got caught in a cactus plant. Okay, child has cactus thorn in hand, and everything stops. Reach for first aid kit, do some remedy, do some healing, and then we proceed with the benediction. So I hope there aren't any cactus plants nearby. You need to be very practical, friends. The closing words, the benediction, is from the Buddha. May every creature abound in well-being and peace. Just as a mother with her own life protects her only child from hurt, so within yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature. Love unrestrained, without hate or enmity. And then as you stand or walk, sit or rely, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as divine living. Words from the Buddha. Blessed be.
We will now extinguish the chalice. I invite Fred P. to come up and extinguish the chalice. Please join me in reciting the words in the order of service. We extinguish this chalice, not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. The ending music will be number 116 in the gray hymnal, I'm on my way.
Freedom land.
Amen.